Chapter 24, Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry the message to other alcoholics and addicts and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. The first concept we need to delve into is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We wonder what that spiritual awakening was. It wasn't just one incident that brought us to the awareness of who we are today. This step takes into account all work and all people who were part of our recovery. My first sponsor, Bill M., wrote one of the first books outside of the AA organization about the 12 steps, called Tools for Fools. In his book, he explained the 12 steps as a relapse prevention model, calling it the domino theory. Once a person worked the steps and has come into recovery, they have to deny the principles of each step before they would go out and drink or use. Henceforth, the comment, "What step were you working when you took that first drink?" I believe that working each step has brought about change in our perception of ourselves, which was achieved only by working the steps with others. The new perception is derived from building unconditional relationships with others, breaking free from our controlling character defects. We can relapse if we reject not only the 12-step concepts that we have come to believe in, but also those loving, honest, unconditional relationships we have built. These relationships have been sustained through our spiritual belief in a power greater than ourselves, a loving, higher power in whatever way it unveils itself in our everyday lives. This evolution of spiritual change began with the first step. We admitted we were powerless over mood-altering substances or behaviors, that our lives had become unmanageable, isolated emotionally and spiritually bankrupt. Acknowledging that we were addicts, alcoholics, shattered our prison of denial. In the second step, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We were ill-equipped in trusting others. With our next breath of honesty in this step, we were willing to ask for help. We were drowning, men and women, yet our voice was still being heard. Humility began to grow in relationships, asking for our help from our higher power and others in recovery. In the third step, made a decision to turn our will and lives over the care of God as we understood Him. We took action by embracing the unlimited resources that were available to us through our relationships in recovery. We were no longer afraid of taking support from others and the loving care from our God or higher power of our understanding. The third step was a demonstration of building these new relationships, showed us that we had become part of a power greater than ourselves. In Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. We saw there are people who moved forward in this step who are true heroes of recovery. People who show strength to work this step often will follow through with the rest. Our fear was overwhelming in looking at the damage we created in our lives. With loving support and others in recovery, we moved ahead in this endeavor. With courage and drive, we brought our past to the light with pen and paper. We listed our character defects that were both controller and victim-based, and where we withdrew from others, which caused damage in our lives and in the lives of others. By completing this step, we demonstrated the integrity and strength of brutal honesty which strengthened our spiritual drive. In Step 5, admitted to God, ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. We brought our past out by openly sharing it with our sponsor, mentor, or counselor in recovery. We have also openly acknowledged our past to our higher power. In sharing our past, including our secrets with a person and our loving God or higher power, we disclosed our character defects and what impact they had on ourselves and others. We have taken the ultimate risk, to expose who we are entirely to one person. This accomplishment showed us acceptance from another person and gave us the strength to accept ourselves. This allowed us to further build other unconditional relationships. As said before, this is like jumping into the deep end of the pool. Through Step 6, we are entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. We became prepared to dismantle the character defects that sustained us in our addictions. We became aware of what we got out of our character defects, which was control, being controlled, or withdrawing. What staying in those relationships cost us was being alone. Our awareness brought us to the readiness of making personal change in our relationships with others in the present. In Step 7, humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. We took action on this step to make the ultimate sacrifice, exchanging our victim, controller, and isolating behaviors for new relationships with others based on unconditional relationships. We step beyond our perception of who we were to who we are becoming in recovery, based on our newfound humility. In Step 8, made a list of people we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Our newfound humility brought us awareness that we were responsible for the damage we caused in those relationships. This list identified who we affected through our victim, controller, and isolating behaviors or character defects. We made a list with support from others around us. We broke through the last barriers of our denial which were left in this preparation. Step 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible except when to do so would injure them or others. With assistance of a sponsor, counselor, and other mentors in 12-step recovery, we pursued this effort guided by our loving God, higher power of our understanding. This action of amends and restitution allowed our relationship with others to heal. This process allowed us to reconcile relationships with others, so that we could move on to unconditional relationships. This process included the amends we owed for being the controller offender to others, being a victim in other relationships, and being isolated from relationships. We faced and were accountable for our actions in our addictions and were ready to move on. In Step 10, continue to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. We acknowledge responsibility for one of our victim, controller, isolator character defects flare up and we make amends. It helped us to navigate through our daily activities, compelling us to use the program of honesty in our relationships with others. In Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. We proceeded with the teachable attitude that humility of the program had brought to us. We allow ourselves to be open to prayer and meditation in our lives, practicing it in our everyday activity. This process that we reviewed brought us to the 12th step. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps is often a gradual process unveiled to us as we work the steps. The term spiritual awakening exemplifies a clarity of purpose in one's actions. It shows a significant change has occurred in our lives, giving us a second chance. For some, it may be an incident that triggers the awareness of this spiritual awakening. I remember waiting for some type of burning bush to validate that my life had changed. I was working at a men's clothing store and living in a halfway house at about 10 months sober. One day, I went out of the store to look at the work I had done in a window display, and a man approached me asking me for spare change. I told him the street corner is where he would have the best luck. And as he walked away, I saw that he was me. Like me in the past, all he was looking for was enough money to get the next high. I looked at my reflection in the window, and for the first time I could see that I had changed from being an alcoholic addict street kid into a spiritual being. Our actions define who we are. We sometimes lack the insight to see the reflection of who we are becoming. Being aware of the changes that have occurred for the positive is important. Having obsessive-compulsive characteristics in being an addict, we tend to focus on one thing at a time. In looking at our past actions, we sometimes get stuck in an image of who we were and have difficulty in changing that perception to who we are becoming. When I'm at a 12-step meeting and I introduce myself by saying my first name and that I'm an alcoholic and addict, I am telling everyone in the room the source of destruction that led me to recovery. I'm acknowledging not only my pain of addiction and alcoholism, but my experience, strength, and hope that have led me to who I am today. Someone at a 12-step meeting told me once that this program is more elite than any other organization in the world because of what it cost us to get into the front door. As a result of being part of 12-step recovery, I am also a part of a group of individuals that share the same story. This part of the process makes me stronger. I discovered this not only for myself, but with others throughout recovery. The second part of the 12th step is, we try to carry this message to other alcoholics and addicts who are still suffering. We have gratitude for the changes and spiritual awakening which has occurred in our lives. We relate to a deep sense of empathy the reality of the pain and suffering that another alcoholic addict experiences in their life. Our effort in sharing this experience with others is a continuation of our unconditional relationships with others. This common ground is a basis for our efforts to help another person suffering from addictions without judgment or condemnation. The effort of sharing on this level of interaction feeds our ability to regenerate further energy for our own recovery. This energy, as it speaks, replaces our initial motivation for change, which was fear and pain, to gratitude and hope. We see the pain of others suffering. Other addicts coming into recovery fuels our further realization of gratitude for the changes that have occurred in our lives. Other addicts coming into recovery fuels further realization of gratitude for the changes that have occurred in our own lives. The power of empathy offers the heightened awareness that the individual still suffering from their addiction is no different from us. We experience a sense of vulnerability that we are just one sidestep away from the devastation of addiction. This keeps us teachable in our relationships with others in our recovery and keeps our spiritual awakening alive. The effort of giving to others helps us to build more positive outlook in our own lives. We may get into ongoing problems, but taking time out to share with a newcomer gives us a new perspective on the simplicity of our issues. We are responsible to provide for support where it is asked. It is not our position to judge the person who is incapable of hearing our message. Even if the person has struck out at trying to stay sober countless times, it may be their time for a shot at recovery. The term principles before personalities also fits here. We must be spiritually fit to accept responsibility of being support to anyone who asks. Our ability to believe that anyone has a chance at recovery, no matter what their circumstances are, is necessary in order to provide assistance to another addict. Like us, they can see through our actions if we are talking down to them or judging them, and they may reject any help that is available. Our efforts to help someone comes out naturally by sharing from our personal experiences in recovery. It is a strength that we have found through the diligence of working the program, and the hope that we've experienced from working the program in our lives. This attribute offers a unique message to others in the framework which allows a newcomer a non-threatening support. We are not there to give advice or to tell them how to manage an already unmanageable situation. We are relating to their predicament and offering the same resources that were offered to us. Our ability to respond with warmth and compassion comes from talking across to them rather than down to them. Our higher power is also working through us, and is there to guide us in the message we are offering. This vital energy resource that isn't just working through us, but is also filling us. We present our message to the newcomer without reflection on how they may respond to it. Yes, we wish that they would be able to come out of their suffering and into the light of recovery. The outcome isn't on our timetable. It is up to them and the loving God in their life on how it is received. This may be a seed that takes time to grow in the person's life, until they are prepared to walk into the doors in 12-step programs. Others may be incapable of hearing the message and die in their addictions. My purpose has been served if I am able to make the effort to share with others. I demonstrate my gratitude when I provide service. We may be called upon by someone from a hotline service, a family member, or a person walking into a 12-step meeting for the first time. Maybe we need to provide support to someone by introducing him or her to recovery. Often at a 12-step meeting, the newcomer is greeted with an almost overwhelming invitation from those around them, and with a list of phone numbers that they can call for help. What usually happens in these meetings is people share the experienced strength and hope that they experienced in recovery. When going out on a 12-step call to talk to someone, we should bring another recovering person, such as a sponsor, with us. There are no guarantees that the addict we are there to help will take the message as support. We listen to what pain motivated him or her in the direction of recovery, and we offer support and sensitivity as they enter recovery. If we are asked by the addict's family member or friend to provide support, and the addict is not aware of the request, be cautious. He may retaliate or become aggressive during the event, which is called an intervention. The best thing to do is to refer the friend or family member to a professional counselor who specializes in interventions. Taking someone to a 12-step meeting is also considered a 12-step call, if it is the person's first 12-step meeting. I remember working a construction job and waiting outside of the boss's house with a coworker. He had heard I was in recovery and wanted to know about it. When I told him about the 12-step meetings I attended for support, he asked if he could come with me that evening. He became an active member of the program after that. I hadn't even realized I was doing a 12-step call, but that's what it turned out to be. Being in recovery can be an active form of 12-step work, because people see our actions are encouraged by them. I once worked with a police officer who was in recovery, whose job was to transport incarcerated individuals to court and other county jails. He reported that for years he shared his story with everyone he transported. True, they were a captive audience, but the message still got delivered. Another form of 12-step work is doing service work, such as being the secretary of a 12-step meeting. The secretary starts the meeting and opens it up for discussion. Another duty might be simply putting the coffee on or helping putting out the chairs. In 1974, I remember in Minneapolis that there had been a limited amount of 12-step meetings for people of my age who were alcoholic and addict. So I decided to start other 12-step meetings. I went to treatment centers across the city to invite their clients. My involvement helped me to build confidence and to build relationships with others in recovery. At other times, I helped start other 12-step meetings, and each time people joined my journey, it brought me satisfaction. Being on the list for hotline 12-step calls is a positive outlet, and speaking at various treatment centers, hospitals, and institutions. The service representative of your local 12-step meeting should have information on what you can do. I have conducted 12-step meetings in prisons and other recovery-based institutions for years, and enjoyed my involvement with peers who attended. I have left these activities with a sense of zeal and gratitude for recovery. In summary, each of us have a special gift and unique way of presenting our message to others. Some people may find their place in doing service work by being part of a committee for helping to set up recovery conferences. Others may find the simplicity of being at a meeting and doing service work, being a secretary or a chairperson. Some may find their place by presenting at hospitals and institutions. Others may be strongest in giving first-hand encouragement through working on a hotline or going out on a 12-step call. And of course, in walking our path, we become an example for others through our actions. The third part of the 12-step is practicing these principles in all our affairs. If we are truly going to become part of society, then we need to extend our efforts into every faction of our lives. If the process worked on our addiction issues, it probably can work on other areas of our lives. Once I had a conversation with a person in recovery, a successful businessman and a former lieutenant governor of that state I was living in at the time. He said he used the concepts of 12-step recovery in his business ventures, and they were extremely productive in building business associations with others. I'm not saying it will cure your hiccups, but it can work in any area where we are having an impasse. Often people who have addictions have other health issues to consider. I was a smoker, and at 6 years recovery I addressed my addiction to smoking cigarettes. It took me several years, but by using the 12-step program as a primary tool for recovery, I have not smoked since. Personal health issues through our self-care of nutrition and exercise can also be an issue for people recovering from addictions. At 50 years old, I had over the years gradually gained 65 pounds of extra weight. I addressed the issue related to my eating patterns as a character defect which I needed to change. The steps helped me to develop awareness of taking action on developing a healthy lifestyle using nutrition and exercise. I have dropped the weight and have remained stable at the same weight for the past 10 years. The consequence of me being overweight caused me to have high blood pressure, snoring, and apnea. All issues were eliminated by taking care of my weight and health. There are a lot of resources available to those in building healthy awareness. Nutrition stores, nutritionists, naturopath doctors, and of course your family practitioner. A simple eating plan, which is good for most people, is the diabetic diet, which is low carbohydrate and low fat intake. Some people will walk for 40 minutes a day, work out at a gym, swim, or run. It is essential to set aside time each day for some type of activity, as it is a self-nurturing act of kindness. Of course, it is within our nature not to take action until we see it as necessary, but by being aware of the potential health issues, we are more apt to take action. Personally, I have found using 12-step programs very useful in the experience of raising teenagers. I remember my children telling me that they had a higher IQ, believing that they were smarter than me. I acknowledged that, but said that they wouldn't see the benefit of their higher IQ until they turned 25 years old. The 12-step worksheet is available at www.treatmentguide4u.com. Using the program at its full capacity is unlimited. If we take even 10% of the energy we put into our addictions and diverted it into our program, we probably would have a great program. Sometimes you hear people say, Joe switched from being addicted to substances to being addicted to 12-step meetings. The resources we put toward recovery aren't just transforming us into another addiction. Addiction is the burden of a cycle that is the basis of an insatiable need. It never can be filled. The addict then continues to make the same mistakes, expecting different results. The person in 12-step recovery is in a constant state of interaction, adjusting their values based on their changing needs. There are no scales to determine the quality of life, but my ability to make choices that can change the course through a day, an hour, or even for a moment makes it worthwhile. As a result of working these steps, we have integrated them into our lives and relationships with others. Our lives make sense, and we have confidence in our newfound freedom in recovery.